Aquarius, and welcome to your mid-year reading, somewhat falsely titled Easy Does It. This has not been an easy series of readings for me to do. I apologize for running late. Thank you for your patience on that. Hopefully it will be worth the wait. I have worn my "I Dream in Analog" T-shirt today in honor of the Aquarius reading. However, I have put on my flannel shirt because it's a little bit chilly out. Speaking of dreaming in analog, we are currently not having an analog dream at the moment, I'm doing this video on beautiful Wednesday morning when, for all I know, you are out working in your garden or feeding the chickens or something like that, and you're not, just because you're an Aquarius doesn't necessarily mean you're a technological person. But there are some things about Aquarius that are essential to know about the technological world in which we live, and the way in which Aquarius represents a kind of a filter for technical innovation, meaning that the energy field of Aquarius is the astrological filter in many ways for the kind of basically electrification. Aquarius kind of comes into its own in the time of Benjamin Franklin and the discovery of Uranus, the very sigil of the Industrial Revolution and the Electrical Revolution. And as a person born under the sign Aquarius, you have a special resonance with this environment. And with Pluto now in Aquarius to stay for approximately for the next 18 years, that is a very important factor that we're going to have to be addressing. And I would just say that, and I say this knowing that, unlike me, you're probably not a daily student of the media environment and the electrical environment in the history of technology, but as your presenter, as your astrologer, that's partly my job. I have help, but I'm very concerned about these things because this is the environment in which we are living, and I don't know how people respond to my talking about electricity so much, but were I a fish and a writer as a fish, I sort of am, I would have a lot to say about water and the condition of the water. And as a person walking around on dry land, taking part in the human affairs of the environment in which we live, I have a lot to say about the way in which the environment is basically dominating us right now. And I'm sure that you are concerned about that, concerned on behalf of your children and possibly your grandchildren, because we are growing up in a world very, very different than they did. Yes, we all grew up in an electrical world, but there's something about digital that is just so totally over-involving and so totally overbearing, and we're not really aware of the extent of the problem. I'm following a presenter on YouTube, Taylor, somebody who runs her videos through a little a thing that chops out all the all the space, so it just kind of runs on in one long sentence. But she's very smart and she's very aware of the issues. And one of the issues is the way in which all of our devices are tracking us. And by devices, she's talking about the flashlight app on your phone and the location tracking app on your weather, like location tracking feature on your weather app, and the way that any modern car basically stalks people, their behavior, their driving patterns. There's basically a recorder in the car. If you have OnStar, your location is recorded. Our spirits were not made for this. This is a totally new incursion of the electrical environment, and it is changing us. And this environment is now being described largely by Pluto in Aquarius. Pluto in your sun sign, moon sign, rising sign, Chiron sign, most likely sun or rising. And I'm encouraging people to get your rising sign for this and all of my readings. That's why we push two sign packages. So you may have another angle on Pluto in Aquarius that you can work with. I know I don't cover it in all the signs, but I do cover it in the readings that are included with this one, particularly the awakening. And this is a big deal. This is such a fundamental change in the human condition that we are being swept along with in its early waves. And that makes it very difficult for us to perceive. It makes it difficult for us to understand. It makes it difficult for us to, in any way, recognize, see, feel, or experience in a coherent way. And I'm here to tell you a bit about that and about how I think that conscious adaptation is going to be very, very important. The other, besides representing the technological environment and whether you dream in analog or dream in digital, the other thing about Aquarius is that it represents our relationship to groups. And I was flipping through YouTube shorts. I'm a newcomer to this whole thing of shorts. Like, I realize there's already 7 billion of the 8 billion residents on the planet or have been hooked on these things since like the day after they were born. Personally, I have just recently discovered how much fun they are. And that's partly because I'm into animal videos. But I picked up on George Carlin talking about groups, the problem with groups, and the way that after a while groups quickly begin to get a hat that they all wear, and then they're paying visits to you at 2 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. And so there's an issue with groups, and there's an issue with groups and the electrical environment, because the electrical environment pushes people into tribes. It's like a sheepdog that herds people into these clusters of people, and this is the one of the main properties of the digital environment is that it is this heavily tribalized environment that, because it is disembodied, which really means insane. You could be perfectly embodied and never have done a yoga stretch in your entire life. You can do yoga 3 times a day and be completely disembodied. And the metric has a lot to do with whether you're a crazy person. And by a crazy person, I mean someone who is willing and able to violate the mores of a society where we need to basically take care of one another, cooperate, and at least be sufficiently acquainted with one another that we're capable of being helpful to one another. And the digital environment completely subverts this, and the main property of disembodiment is insanity. And one of the characteristics of insanity is the extreme aggression that we are seeing in the world. There are things we're seeing in the world that could never have ever have worked under analog conditions the way that they're working today, known about by everyone, called exactly what they are. I'm sure you could think of a few things that I'm talking about. And also a reticence to acknowledge the existence of the body and the body's feelings. Another very serious problem under digital conditions. That anything involving the body is suddenly offensive unless it is dangled out in front of us as some kind of a lure or as bait for something else. Then the body is okay. And there's all these like real cuckoo rules about what is and isn't okay, what isn't appropriate to think. And I'm proposing here that it is necessary for you to be a bit of a social scientist and to track these things, and also to invoke the spirit of the inner witness and observe yourself and decide on a day-to-day basis whether or not you want to be like that. If at the end of the day you have determined that there are some things that you didn't like that you said or didn't like that you did, the time to impose those changes is immediately, not at some time in the future, not in a week or a month. There, in a life that is reflective, there needs to be daily reflection and adaptation, and a constant process of of reconciliation with people, and that means honest communication, as well as some measure of humility.